Congresswoman DeLauro has a fierce debate with Kash Patel on Congress's floor regarding cuts at the FBI. You guys have got to check out this exchange.
Director Patel, you have previously stated that your number one priority for the FBI is to end violent crime in the United States. The budget request slashes the FBI budget by more than $500 million, below the current level. It quite literally would defund law enforcement, including it would appear cutting a number of FBI intelligence analysts who work on critical national security issues. How is it possible to cut more than $500 million, or more than 5% below a hard freeze in the FBI's operating budget, without impacting the law enforcement and national security-related functions of the FBI? Please specify exactly which positions would be cut.
Ma'am, at this time, we have not looked at who to cut. We are focusing our energies on how not to have them cut by coming in here and highlighting to you that we can't do the mission on those 2011 budget levels. And so what we're focusing on is right now is working with our partners in OMB, the appropriators, to say that we cannot cover down on the mission at the levels that we would have to go to, which would be the 2011 levels, should all the budget cuts you just outlined be implemented.
So, but are you talking about coming up here with a budget request that restores the funding that has been cut? That it's a defunding law enforcement? You're talking about $500 million below the current level. How would you restructure the budget to get to what you need in order to be able to make sure that we are not defunding law enforcement and that we are not cutting the analysts that you need in order to be able to do your job and to be dealing with national security issues? I don't understand. You've got a budget request, $500 million less, and you're cutting people. You don't know who you're going to cut. You don't want. Tell us which it is. Are you going to restore that $500 million? You're going to request restoring that $500 million?
Well, as I said, I'm not the budget expert, but the budget request that we put in, the FBI, was $11.2 billion, I believe. And we are working through the appropriations process and the OMB process and the skinny budget that we receive to work with y'all to help us get to a number. And I believe if we got back the number you stated, we would not have to cut more FBI.
So with a $500 million cut, more than 5% below the hard freeze of the FBI's operating budget, you believe that then this would not impact enforcement or national security related functions? Then what are the positions, I'm going to ask the question again, what positions are you looking to cut? What is the cuts for this $500 million? Now, apparently that $500 million, you're not in the budget department, but this is your budget. This is your budget. You have to have some idea of what you want to fund or not fund, or where you think you can cut or not cut, and provide that information to OMB. I'm unclear, and it seems to me that you are, as to what should be the budget of this agency, and if it's $500 million lower, what are the positions that you believe will have to be cut in order to reach the mandate that you are bringing forward to us in terms of your budget?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's the proposed budget, not by the FBI. The proposed budget that I put forward is to cover us for $11.1 billion, which would not have us cut any positions. The proposed budget.
So the skinny budget is we don't have, the skinny budget is wrong.
The skinny budget is a proposal, and I'm working through the appropriations process to explain why we need more than what has been proposed
So
in that budget.
what do you need? You need $11.2 billion?
Approximately.
Okay. Now, is that going to be delineated? I don't know what that means in terms of cuts that would be coming up to reach that goal. So there would be no additional positions deleted from the FBI if you get that amount of money.
That's correct.
And that's what we anticipate is coming in a budget that we anticipate at some point. We don't know when we're going to get it, even though we will be in markups by the time this effort is underway. But according according to what we have received from the FBI, there are 904 positions that are currently slated for transfer from Washington, D.C. to field offices that are currently vacant. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is, what, is there any explanation of why these positions are moving to field offices? One of the things we can't seem to get answers to, and this is not you, is programs are being deleted, programs that are being frozen, dollars are being frozen, programs that are being cut. We don't have any sense on this committee, which is the Appropriations Committee, and making a determination of what we should or shouldn't do, is any evaluation from any agency so far, and I ask this of you, what is the criteria? What are the programs that are going to be potentially left behind? What is the evaluation process here that says why these programs are no longer functional or not working? What is the story? Can we get from you when we're going to get some sort of an idea of what is a budget that you can deal with? Is what will be, what may be cut, what may not be cut, and why? What's the criteria by which that these programs would be, the evaluation is to transfer them out? Or why are these people going to field offices? Can we get that from you?
Yeah, I can give it to you right now, ma'am. The short answer as to why these folks are going to the field is because we are moving agents, intel analysts, and SOSs across the country into every state to get a hand-level grasp on violent crime in every single community. We're moving those folks out there.
Okay, but I just will wrap up, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. You need to provide for us, specify exactly which so-called, quote, overhead positions are being cut, and since other federal agencies are also proposing position cuts, how won't this cut inevitably reduce the FBI's intelligence analytic capabilities? We need to have that information.
I mean, I'm sorry to say this, maybe I'm a mean person, but it's hard to take somebody who looks like that seriously in Washington, D.C. Like, this person is clearly not well in the head. Why should I trust this person who oversees legislation in Congress? Aside from her physical appearance, it was just painful to watch. I was almost embarrassed for her ability when she kept stumbling on trying to ask a certain question and she was unable to get it out over and over and over again. We need to defund these corrupted politicians, because I just take one look at this person right here, and I know there's some shady stuff going on in the background. Let's just say this woman is a far cry from the Mr. Rogers archetype. This woman has served in Congress ever since 1991. Let's do some math. That is 34 years that this woman has served in Congress. And the way that the law is set today, a president is term limited. I think it is about time that we put term limits on these crazy, corrupted politicians, because if you spend your whole life supposedly working for the taxpayer, before your run is over in Congress, the taxpayer is working for you. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. You have these senators who just keep getting in, keep winning their elections over and over and over again, yet no major change is happening. They're not doing anything beneficial for us. They're just going to use the powers of their office to enrich themselves. That's all that Washington, D.C. and the swamp is. So I don't know how Kash Patel was able to look at this person and answer the questions in such a serious manner. Maybe I'm being mean, maybe I'm being judgmental, but that's just the way I see it.
Rogers, Ranking Member Meng, Chairman Cole, Ranking Member DeLauro. And thank you, Mr. Patel, for your testimony and for being here today. I've been looking at the President's 120-word FBI budget request, the so-called skinny, I'll call it Ozempic request, that states that, quote, the undoing of the weaponization of the FBI is one of the administration's top priorities. The weaponization of the FBI that is something that deeply concerns me. It should concern all of us. And yet, since taking office, President Trump has been on a revenge tour. He has targeted individuals, universities, law firms, with executive orders to cut them out or to make them come under his will. He has used ICE to disappear U.S. citizens without due process. and he's fully ignored a unanimous Supreme Court order, and then over the weekend wasn't sure if he was obligated to uphold the Constitution of the United States. In your book, your recent book, Government Gangsters, you include an appendix with a list of names that people have referred to as an enemies list. Now, I know you will claim it's just an appendix, not an enemies list. So let's focus on how the president sees it, on what the president calls it. And you proudly display his quote on the front cover of your book. The president calls this a brilliant roadmap, a blueprint. And I have not even raised your storied children's book, The Plot Against the King. It concerns me how many people from this blueprint have been targeted with executive orders and FBI investigations. The FBI cannot be weaponized, and under your leadership, it has been nothing but a weapon alongside the president to go after the president's perceived opponents, to stifle dissent and free speech. A few weeks ago, as we saw through a social media post that you quickly deleted, the FBI arrested a judge in Wisconsin for correctly asking ICE officials if they had a judicial warrant instead of an administrative warrant, which they did not have. Despite this judge following the law, on the morning of April the 25th, the FBI arrested the judge in an escalation of the weaponization of the FBI under your leadership. Let me be clear. A functioning democracy does not lock up judges. I am gravely concerned about the utter lack of independence of the FBI and its weaponization under your leadership. I am concerned that the president is using this book, your book, as a blueprint, as he has said. It's a blueprint for revenge. And I am concerned that your eagerness, a childlike giddiness to carry out the president's revenge tour, you've shown yourself to be unserious in your statements before you were sworn in and some after. You've shown yourself unfit to lead this important agency. I was an impeachment manager for President Trump's second impeachment. It was a sad, solemn duty. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Mr. Patel, as you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
You want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies
So-
list on that book.
So
There are
you-
people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people.
That's good. You
And they
gave
were
them due
rightly
process.
called out.
I'm
And
changing
you should give
topics.
that book to every one of your constituents so they can read about it.
I won't be doing that.
That's their loss.
During your Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6 insurrectionists, the violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers, and whom you referred to as politicized. Since then, multiple whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury. At the same hearing, you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier, despite the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times. And you claimed not to recall. Mr. Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing
Veracity?
perjury. Tell the American
You didn't
people how
know.
I broke the law and committed a felony.
You
Have the audacity to actually put the
all right,
facts
then
forward
the answer is
instead of
both.
lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second
answer
donation hit.
The answer is both. I believe that the
The
men and
answer is
women of
you're
the
failing, not me.
I reclaim my time.
Head.
Mr. Patel, I believe that the members of the FBI, and I know many of them, many retired, 38,000 people, as you say, it's a little less than that now, deserve extraordinary independence, deserve freedom from the fears of being investigated, the freedom of coming forward to make sure they're doing their job. And I'll end with this, that I think it's interesting that in your proposal today, you find yourself at a gulf of difference between you and the president. I wonder how you will resolve that. Will you go to the president and say, we need $11.2 billion not what you cut out of here. You're asking for more than $1 billion than the president's request. Are you going to go to the president and straighten out that gulf?
I'll do what I've always done and represent the American people, defend this country, and make sure the Constitution is always upheld and the FBI is never weaponized. Maybe you should do the same.
So you agree with the president when he says he doesn't know if he should uphold his constitutional duty?
If you want to just keep putting words in my mouth, the TV cameras are outside.
It's so funny. She says a functioning democracy does not prosecute federal judges. Well, that's funny. Does a functioning democracy attack its political opponents? Your number one challenger to determine whether or not you enter the Oval Office again, the most powerful position on earth? Because that's exactly what they did to President Donald Trump. Did she actually just say it was a very solemn day when I was prosecuting Donald Trump and trying to impeach him? I know for an almost certainty that this woman was not only happy that they were trying to impeach Trump, but she was almost giddy that Donald Trump, the evil man that he is, will finally get what's coming to him. Give me a break. This person is nothing but a partisan hack. How can she possibly say that the FBI now is attacking its enemies and they have an enemies list? Meanwhile, anybody who was close to Donald Trump was serving prison or was threatened with serving prison, whether that be his family, his kids. They even raided Barron Trump's room when he was like 16, 17 years old. Like, are you kidding me? You raid Barron Trump's room, but you don't raid Hunter Biden's? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, Roger Stone. And look at what they're doing to Elon Musk. They're putting him through a literal hell just because he's trying to save the Republic. Elon Musk is a freaking hero, and the way that they paint him is if he's a monster and he's trying to destroy this great country. So I'll tell you what, I don't give a damn what this woman says, because she, and just like the Democrats, are full of it. They call you the worst names in the book, meanwhile they do every single thing that they accuse you of. This is just classic manipulation and deception, and these people are doing it at the highest degrees. So fair play to Kash Patel for sticking it to this woman, because a lot of people in his position would have just shelled up and cowered to the mob, but Kash Patel is willing to stick his neck out there and do what is right, even though he might face consequences in the short term for doing so. And I'll tell you what, it's about time that the FBI and the Department of Justice gets a rude awakening, because they have been attacking the middle class and attacking American families for far too long. It's about time they turn their scopes onto the American politician and those who have been enriching themselves at our behest for countless years. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. How would you rate Kash Patel's job as FBI director thus far? And yeah, if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.